Good afternoon and welcome, Mr. Mayor, councillors and officers, and those watching this live stream of the Moira Shire Council night meeting. I invite you all to stand.
On, isn't it? Okay. Almighty God, we humbly ask you to guide our deliberations for the welfare and the benefit of the Moira Shire and the people whom we serve. Acknowledgement to country. We, the Moira Shire Council, would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet and pay respect to their elders, both past and present. Councillors, you may be seated. Thank you. Apologies and request a leave of absence.
Yes.
Councillor Brooks, thank you. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Lawless, thank you. All those in favour of that motion? Carried, thank you. 5, declaration under the Act Regulations of Code Local Laws, Neil. 6, declaration of any interest or conflict of interest, Neil. Confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. Could I have a councillor move the previous meetings, please? Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendation of the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting held on Wednesday, the 23rd of June 2021, as prepared, be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Could I have a councillor second that, please? Councillor Cox. All those in favour? Done. Thank you. Council reports. I'll start on that. This is a special time for council with our new Chief Executive Officer, Claire Keenan, officially attending the first of many ordinary council meetings. We're extremely grateful to have you here, Claire, and look forward to working with you over the next few years. I'm sure together we will all be able to continue to achieve great things for Moira Shire and its residents. Thank you, Claire, and welcome. Councillors to provide verbal, councillors to continue with verbal reports and reports. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple, and I'll be brief, Mr. Mayor. We've had some tree planting days, and look, CODIF has stepped in and prevented some of them from happening. But look, I'd just like to raise the concern, Mr. Mayor. We've got tree planting days, and I believe there's another one due for very shortly tomorrow, I think, for Numurkah. Unfortunately, there's been great intent, but we're achieving or compromising our outcomes. We're planting these trees in floodways, Mr. Mayor. And look, I just asked if we could take a backward step. It's great to have trees planted around, shrubs planted around, but unfortunately we're impeding and basically constructing a de facto levee bank of trees in the wrong spot. So I'm just asking if we could have some a bit of a review there as to what's going on and some change. Mr. Mayor, I've just the other day looked at the Power Street Nathalia bus interchange, and it's been a huge project. It's been a long overdue project. It's been a fairly controversial project in its early days when the St Mary's were looking at closing off and taking charge of Power Street. That sort of riled the locals a bit, but look, the outcome has been absolutely fantastic. The contractors have all but finished an absolutely top job, Mr. Mayor. And look, I think with the contractors there, I think everybody's happy. There's only some finalising with the safety fencing, etc., to go. And look, we've got a top job that will last and provide a safe interchange for the kids getting on the buses there for many years to come. And last but not least, Mr. Mayor, going back a couple of weeks with our Madam CEO and Councillor Limbick, I joined the NAIDOC week celebrations down at the Dania Centre at the Moira Lakes at Barmer. Fantastic setup, a good crowd and a fantastic setup. And look, I think they're doing great things to promote the cause. And look, I was very impressed. It was an absolutely fantastic day. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Lawless, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 13th of July, I attended the Disability Advisory Committee meeting in Numurkah. It was well attended, and there's been some moves to really reinvigorate that committee and to bring on some new ideas. We've got some new people involved, and there's been there was been a bit of public comment about maybe some of the shortcomings that we have with some of our facilities in the Shire, and I think I'd like to ask people if they've got a problem in an area to maybe come to a councillor or bring it up with staff at council so that we can address it. And look, I know there's lots of things that we can do, but we can't do them if we don't know what needs to be done. And look, one of my frustrations, apart from that, I believe that every business should be accessible by every person in the Shire. And until we get to that, I don't think we're really being fair income. But some of these places, I know some of the businesses are going through hard times, but there's many businesses in many of our main streets in our major towns where a lot of people can't even get into them. And I don't think that's really acceptable. And I understand the challenges that are there, but in today's world, I think they need to be addressed and we need to be moving forward. On the 14th of July, I attended the Yarrawonga Library Events and Performance Precinct final design session. It was an information session along with Councillors Mansfield and Elliott. It was attended by some very passionate supporters of the project, and there were some really good questions asked about the YCAG people that and what things that could enhance the project as well. But it was a well attended and it was a terrific information session. And I'm glad to see the project is proceeding, and I think that it'll be something that when it comes to conclusion will be an unbelievable asset for Yarrawonga. I also, along with a few others from council, attended the Lions and the Rotary changeover dinners. And the only reason I mention that, I know that they're not so much council related things, but those groups, we rely on those groups to deliver a lot of projects for us, and they do a lot of community work on behalf of Shire and work that we don't have to do. And so I compliment those groups and thank them for their invitation to those changeover dinners. I think that's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Any other council reports? Councillor Elliott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just basically want to endorse what Councillor Lawless said about the information session for the new library precinct. Councillor Mansfield also attended. Jackie and Camelo of N2SH, the architects for the project, they revealed the final library design to members of the library steering committee and the community reference group. I thought the designs were well received, and our very congenial Councillor Lawless chaired the question time, and he built a rapport with the audience that came some well-considered questions and comments. So I just want to add, Mr. Mayor, that as a council, we've invested a lot of time and energy into the untoward sentiment to the precinct, but I believe we've persevered for the undermentioned, but overwhelming support for the precinct as well. So I just want to table a letter tonight which reiterates this sentiment from Barb McDermott, and anyone who knows Barb will know how very much involved she is in the community. And I just want to say that Barb's letter reiterates her overwhelming support for the project, suggesting it will be an exciting precinct for residents and visitors alike. She understands the romantic and emotional connection to the community hall, but pens the need to move on and thanks the steering committee and the Moira staff who have persisted for years to get this precinct off the ground. She goes on to say that we'll miss out on so many wonderful opportunities and possibilities in our communities because of negativity towards these opportunities. Plus the funding can be allocated elsewhere or end up being lost forever. So she just says congratulations to all. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that I just recently had the opportunity to participate in a mentoring program for newly elected female councillors with ALGWA. And ALGWA, as Councillor Martin knows, is the Australian Local Government Women's Association. And I've been, my mentor is a lady by the name of Beth Ripper, who's a former mayor of the Wellington Shire, which is down in the eastern part of the Shire, for those that don't know, down Sale Way. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to speak to someone that is, very experienced in local council. So I just wanted to thank the council for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. And Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I recently attended and chaired the AGM of the Numurkah Senior Citizens Club, and it was a pleasure to be there. They're a very well-run club and they're heading towards the 300 mark for their membership. Very well run, lots of terrific activities. They enjoyed the support of the council, and I was very impressed with the way that even through COVID, they made sure that they kept contact, whether it was by phone or computer, Zoom, whatever, to make sure that people were travelling okay. So a fabulous club, and it was a very enjoyable occasion. I also attended the grain store where the Year 10 students from St Mary's were part of a NAIDOC Week celebration. There were artworks there from Kayala Gallery in Shepparton, which is now incorporated into the new SAM, and the Year 10s and some of the teachers, they sort of did their own works of art too that were on exhibit that had the Indigenous sort of flavour to it as well. So that was very well received as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Limbrick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Burke's report on NAIDOC and the Dania Day, as he said, myself and he and the CEO attended that day, and it was great to see the Dania Centre having been refurbished after so many years of sitting idle, and it'll be recommissioned, and the work that's been done there, and we can see some of the local Indigenous artefacts and stuff go back on display in that centre in the near future, which would be fantastic. And also interesting to see the plans for that entire area with the addition of a conference centre, some on-site accommodation again, which we lost some sort of 15 years ago, including some glamping facilities. So really good to see that hub come back as part of the important educational facilities in the Barmah National Park. I think there were certainly a lot of people there, and it was a really moving day. I think it was a really great day for the community, certainly for the traditional owners, and also for those of us that were lucky enough to be there. And I think it highlights the importance of that relationship that we should have with the traditional owners, which I don't think we do well enough. And so I just hope that we start to see some more interaction, because clearly that facility of the Dania Centre and its surrounds have got huge implications for tourism, and that's obviously my passion. And I think we need to be having some input into how we can make that a better facility for everybody, for all of us, and for the economy of the council. So again, it was a great day, and I congratulate all of those that were involved in that day. I also just briefly, Nathalia New Year's Eve Carnival, I was part of that committee for a number of years, up until a couple of years ago. It's been going for 60 years or more than 60 years, because it's been going as long as I can remember. And historically, it was set up by a group of fellows to raise money for the local hospital, and was taken over by service clubs and was run for many years by the joint service clubs of Nathalia. In the last few years, fell on the Lions Club to run. Last year was a non-event, obviously, because of COVID, and they've just recently announced that the Lions Club intend not to run the New Year's Eve Carnival in future, which I think is a really, really sad thing. Understand the manpower and the issues around that, which we had 4 or 5 years ago as well. The plan is now to have a community committee, so I'm involved with David McKenzie from Nathalia Barmer Business and Tourism. So we're trying to get the community meeting together, but COVID has been a disaster. We've had to suspend meetings. We had one meeting which was poorly attended, but partly because of COVID. Planning another meeting in a couple of weeks' time now, but there is some work going on in the background. And I think it's really important that from a council perspective, it's the only New Year's Eve function of community base that happens in the Moira Shire, to the best of my knowledge. And it has been going for a long time. So it's really important. So it may be that committee, when it's set up and decides to progress, which I'm sure it will, that we need to acknowledge the fact that event has some significant historical and economic benefits to the council. And I hope that we can support if we require to at some point. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brick. Is there any other council reports? Thank you. We'll move on to public question time this afternoon. Questions from the constituents will be read and answered by our CEO, Claire Keenan. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 questions tonight, 2 of them from Jeff Campbell. And the first is, will council look at providing storage for tables and chairs under the stage? And these questions relate to the new library facility. I realize the orchestra pit makes it difficult, and moving the ladies' toilet to the southwest corner of the hall, i.e. the corner under the clock, to create a kitchen accessible to the hall and meeting room to allow for the town hall to be a standalone enterprise for hiring. So furniture such as chairs and tables will be available for use anywhere in the town hall site. And there certainly are plans to relocate the ladies' toilets on the ground floor. There is a kitchenette upstairs that will be retained for the purposes of obviously catering, and the foyer there will hold possibly 30 people, possibly more when we take into account the customer service area. There will obviously be large areas in the library that will also be available for over 100 people. There'll be a large kitchen out the back, and the cafe area too will be able to be used for events and catering. The second question, Jeff Campbell again, regarding the library presentation on the 14th of July, 2001. At the presentation, it was stated that the project had a budget of 5.5 million, including design work. So far, how much money is left for the project? Well, the design work tender was awarded in June for 2021 for the sum of 242,000, including GST, which leaves us with 5.26 million for the project at this point. Final question from Carol Henderson. As Moira Shire Council has determined to demolish the community hall, and the current plans for the new library have no recycling of materials, example, Drysdale bricks made in Yarrawonga and one of considerable heritage value, as well as timber floor, will council undertake to use the timber floor and bricks on the former YPS site, where there are numerous options in the renovations required to regenerate the site for the community of Yarrawonga and the Moira Shire as a historical tourist attraction, community and function centre. Carol, you did mention to me at your the YCAG meeting, the hardwood floor, and my question to the officers immediately was, would that be preserved? And yes, there are already design elements that will be taking that floor into account in some of what's done. The question of bricks had not yet been brought to my attention, but certainly if there was a proposal put to us very speedily by the community who perhaps wanted to use those, we could look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. 10.1, Office of the CEO, Neil. 10.2, Corporate. 10.2.1, 2021/22, Local Government Liability Mutual Insurance Renewal. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the motion, Mr. Mayor, that council accept the renewal proposal for MAV Insurance Liability Mutual Insurance Scheme, and item 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign the 2021-22 insurance renewal documents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Cox. Could I have a sec? Councillor Lawless. Councillor Cox, you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, just to say that in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, the insurance premium has gone up sort of substantially, and probably watch this space in the next few years. But yeah, no, all good, Mr. Mayor. We've got to have insurance.
Got to have insurance. Councillor Lawless.
I think perhaps the disappointing part about it is that we haven't got too much of a choice in where we seek our public liability, and we have got an exemption to not go out to tender, to just do it through the MAV. But as previous councillor has mentioned, that the premium has only gone up 6.5% this year, but the 2 previous years it went up 32%, well 16% each of those 2 years. And there's one thing that has been sort of written into that, which I think is going to happen to a lot of things, so that our insurance doesn't go through the roof. We can't cover all the possibilities of all the implications of COVID. So that has been heavily taken into account in the way that the policy has been written, so that we're not too exposed. And I guess with uncertain times, if you wrote that into insurance policy, we'd probably be paying 100% more than what we're paying.
Thank you, councillor Lawless. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Cox, all said. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Okay, 10.2.2 proposed discontinuance sections of unused roads within Lake Inyamerk. Could I have a councillor move that motion? Councillor Martin.
I'd like council to defer this motion until we get the full report back from Spire on what's proposed for the lake, because there's going to be big changes, and I think then we look at this again then. Thank you.
Could I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Lawless, Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to it?
Just to say that we're sort of halfway through the process at the moment. There's going to be lots of changes, and I think we wait until we get the plans back from Spire, and then we go out. We'll be going out to the public anyhow, so that can be part of that process. Then
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Lawless.
Only just to support Councillor Martin. She has great knowledge of the Numurkah community and of this project. So I think that what she's saying makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I think it'd be premature that we went ahead with this at the moment. I go along with the 2 previous councillors. We defer it until such time, and it's only, I think, December, that we get the report back from Spire, and at least then we're going to have the knowledge to, be able to make a sound decision into the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Burke. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Martin, you wish to sum up, or that's okay?
Yeah, I think I've said everything that needs to be said, and yeah, thank you.
Okay, councillors, let's voting for delaying or not delaying. What's the word? Defer this motion. All those in favour for deferring the motion? Carried. Thank you. 10.2.3 appointment and authorisation of council officers under the Planning and Environmental Act 1987. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Elliott.
I'd like to move that council resolves that the number 1, the members of council staff referred to in the instrument of appointment and authorisation be appointed and authorised as set out in the instrument. And number 2, the instrument be sealed with the common seal of council. And number 3, the instrument come into force immediately following the common seal of council being affixed to the instrument and remains in force until council determines to vary or revoke it. And finally, number 4, upon the instrument coming into force, the instrument of appointment and authorisation to members of council staff as made by council on the 16th of December 2020 is revoked.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Could I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Burke, Councillor Elliott, you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, this recommendation seeks approval with the common seal of council in the interest of transparent and accountable governance. As far as I can see, there are 4 changes to the previous council staff instrument of appointment. They are, number 1, of course, our CEO, Claire Keenan, being appointed to CEO, replacing Mark Henderson. Number 2, town planner David Young to the position of manager building, town planning and regulatory services. Number 3, Peter Stenhouse resigning as planning coordinator. And number 4, a position title change for Christina Kals, is it? Sorry. Safety and Amenity Technical Officer. This instrument will come into force immediately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Elliott. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this is a procedural matter, as Councillor Elliott has said. Our appointments to positions and authorisations are made to individuals by name, not position, and therefore we seem to be periodically updating these where we've got changes to staff carrying out our functions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Elliott. Wish to sum up, or you've said enough?
I've probably said enough, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Thank you. 10.2.4 Assembly of Council. Can I, a councillor, move that motion, please? Councillor Martin, thank you.
Like to put forward that council receive and note the record of assemblies of councillors for June 2021.
Councillor Martin, can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Cox. Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to it?
Yes, even though it says that we don't technically have to report this, we do this in the cause of transparency so that the public can actually see what meetings were held and where and what they were about. So, yeah, it's a good piece of business.
Thank you,
Good way to
Councillor
do
Martin.
business.
Councillor Cox. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Martin, you don't wish to sum up?
No,
You said.
I've said
All those in favour of the motion? Carried, thank you. 10.3 Community Nil, 10.4 Infrastructure, 10.4.1 Contract 12/21 Botts Road, Yarrawonga Drainage Upgrade. Could I have a councillor move that motion? Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that Council 1 award the contract for C012/21 Botts Road, Yarrawonga Drainage Upgrade to Longford Civil Proprietary Limited. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the contract documents. And 3, approve the allocation of $250,000 from cash reserves towards the project budget.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Could I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Limbrick. Councillor Mansfield, you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project is primarily funded through the second round of the LRCIP program. $963,000 has been allocated under this funding. Council will provide an additional $250,000 from the current year's capital works program, which will be sufficient to cover the cost of the contract. This particular drain and Botts Road is probably 5 years ago. It was just the end of a paddock, and now it's being built out at Legoland, and it's very important that this drain be constructed for safety and the amenity of the area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield, for Legoland. Councillor Limbrick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I object to Legoland reference when I happen to be a resident of Silverwoods, the most prestigious estate in the Shire.
Okay.
I think it's important to note that the stage 1 of this plan is supply and installation of 680 metres of lineal drain, and the concept is to fill in the current open drain which runs from Murray Valley Highway down to Lake Mulwala. Having significant, spending significant time up there, it has been an eyesore for many years, and it's from a safety perspective and a whole lot of other reasons, it's great to have the funds to be able to get this project finished. And there's also allowance in the works to be done to allow for future development of the land to the south of the Murray Valley Highway, so on the corner of the highway and Botts Road. So I think it's a great project for the Shire and will make a significant difference to that end of town and certainly to the drainage of that area. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Limbrick. Any other Councillor Lawless? Yes, Lawless, sorry, and then Burke, and then Councillor Burke. Councillor Lawless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just backing up what our previous councillors have said, it was good that we had 9 people, 9 companies put in a tender for this project. One was a non-conforming tender, but it is amazing that, and it's good that we can go. These things need to go out to tender, because when you look at the confidential report on the variations of prices and that, it just is astounding, and much pleasure in agreeing with the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I too agree with the recommendation. Now, resolution. Now, I'm amazed, and look, the big thing that, as Councillor Lawless said, it's great that we've had a large number of people interested and obviously wanting to be involved. The big thing that I've thought for many years, and Councillor Limbrick mentioned it before, is the safety aspect there. This has been a death trap waiting to happen for many years. And look, I'm astounded that we haven't had, when we're in the vicinity where we're encouraging families, particularly young families around, and we've got an open drain like this in the, very close to the precinct, where, look, I'd be very, very pleased to say that this is a good project and probably well overdue, but it'll be a great thing to get to the other end of it. Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Burke. Any other councillor wish to speak to? Councillor Elliott.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, I just want to endorse previous councillors' comments, especially Councillor Limbrick. I think this open drain runs alongside Potts Road there. It's been a real eyesore for a lot of years now, and and it is adjacent to, I reckon, one of our Shire's showcase developments. So these works, once completed, will only complement the area.
So we go from
Legoland, sorry. I think it's a showcase development for the whole Shire.
Any other Councillor Martin?
Yes, this is long overdue, and I think it's great you're finally getting good drainage. It's being beautified, so it doesn't look like an eyesore. And probably also the most important one is it's concerns safety. So if you've got lots of young families and people like that, you do not need any dangers like open drains and things like that. So yes, I
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
endorse
Councillor
that.
Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, I think like with the, thank you, with the future development of Yarrawonga, something like this is a real asset to have behind that direction for that push out there on Yarrawonga. You've got that super development there on Silverwoods, which is the showcase within our Shire. And I just think something like this complements that development. And there's nothing worse when you have a development like Silverwoods and you've got an open drain alongside, Mr. Mayor. It's taken a long time for us to get there as a council, but we've got there, Mr. Mayor. But the future looks a lot better. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Cox, because I just reading through that, and we have been talking about this for 5 years, and in 18 weeks from start, it's basically gone. So we've been talking about this for 5 years, a lot of danger within that curve. So congratulations, let's get it done. So well done. Councillor Mansfield, you wish to speak, sum up?
Yeah, just an extra point, as well as providing drainage for the area that where the open drain is. It will also provide drainage for the new development over the road at in the Gorman's land over the road behind Bunnings, etc. And it's actually being used at the moment for that particular drainage, because I noticed that the pumps on the retard basins are working, and they're pumping water into that drain. And this will be a great project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Absolutely great project to finally finalise. All those councillors in favour of this motion? Carried. Thank you. Well done. Actions Office list, Neil. Notice of motion. Neil? Notice you looked at the clock, Councillor Mansfield. You reckon we're going to break all records tonight? Petitions and joint letters. We got any?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to present to council, I'd like to table a petition in relation to barking dogs within the Shire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Thank you. Okay, council seal, Neil, urgent and general business. Councillors to state urgent business, please. Any urgent general business? No? That's magic. You know what? Close the meeting. Well done. Thank you, councillors, and have a good night. We have broken records, Councillor Mansfield.